we fight for that itch.
Rarely do I see any American Italians eating in here.
But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you.
Villkoret är att jag får leva.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Hey there, welcome to Real Genius. I'm Chris Vognar, culture critic for the Dallas Morning News.
Hi, I'm Robert Wilonsky, and according to half my email today, I'm the Antichrist.
I could have told you that
I know.
long ago, and it's perfect because we're talking about Preacher.
Trust me, that's what I thought.
We're venturing into television, new show on AMC.
Your idea.
My idea, actually.
And I was delighted because it's a comic book adaptation. And I thought, well, Chris doesn't want to talk about more comic book adaptations.
It's a comic book TV thing that I suggested.
It is. It's crazy.
Kind of fascinating. It's very strange, Robert.
It's very strange.
It's a weird show. Why don't we take a look at the teaser trailer and then we shall discuss.
You just gotta walk on both sides of the line. You thrill at the thought of each stranger's arms you find. Everything that yours to hold just can't satisfy your mind. 'Cause you just gotta walk on both sides of the line.
And I hear the comic book, which I have not read, is even more concentrated in its strangeness.
It is.
Just throws things at you from the get-go, whereas this series, which is kind of set in a West Texas town, it's about a preacher played by Dominic Cooper, and all kinds of weird stuff going on. It's kind of spreading the weirdness out and building towards something like, I don't know, I mean, shows that I thought of, The Leftovers, a little bit of Lost, a little bit of David Lynch. You are supposed to be kind of asking, what the hell is going on?
Right.
And apparently we will eventually learn a little bit more about what the hell is going on.
Yeah, it's based on the Garth Ennis comic book. It's more linear. They've been trying to adapt this for any sized screen for a number of years. There was talk of a big screen adaptation. A lot of big directors have been attached to it. This is brought to you by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Just the two guys you think of when you think of murderous, bloody, strange, surreal, alien-y or not-y kinds of shows like this. It's weird how funny it is in a strange way too. It's the bleakest comedic venture from Seth Rogen by far. Although I think it would make a really good sort of double feature with This Is the End. I'd like to see them together at some point.
This is the apocalyptic Seth Rogen Film Festival. Film and television
It is kind of the
festival.
film. I mean, this would have worked. It's the pilot, which aired last week.
And then the next one will air in 2 weeks or a
Right,
week
on
and a
Sunday.
half now. Not this coming Sunday, but the following.
Right.
Sunday.
It's the first one's 90 minutes. It's actually an hour, I guess, all told, with commercial breaks, because AMC sure does love its commercial
Yeah,
breaks.
it does.
Oh my God.
Good Lord.
There are more commercials on AMC than there are on the entirety of network
I
television.
mean, I
during prime
DVR'd it,
time.
and I was still like, really? More commercials? Wow. Okay.
Like every scene commercial. It's weird. But it's bleak. It's funny. It's dark. You don't quite know what the preacher's up to. You are told early on, and I don't want to give too much away because the comic book certainly gives it away a lot quicker. But I don't, it suggests that he's come back to his hometown after an incident involving his father. It's sort of referenced in some ways. If you've seen, oh crap, I can't remember the name of the Sharon Stone, Russell Crowe movie that I've always really loved with Gene Hackman, the Sam Raimi movie.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right.
I can't remember.
Why can't I remember the name of this
I
damn
don't
thing?
know.
I've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah, sorry.
A tragic thing involving the preacher's father, and he's come back to his hometown for reasons that aren't quite explained and then there are these peripheral characters who are not peripheral characters by any stretch, whether it's the sheriff, whether it's Tulip, his former partner.
Whether it's the crazy Irishman who we meet as he kills a whole bunch of people on an airplane.
And then devours a cow.
And then devours a cow.
Or it's Arseface,
Yes.
The guy whose face resembles
A bit puckered.
a bit puckered. Yes,
Yes.
let's put it that way. But it's amazing how much it's very much.
Is that really the character's name?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
Yes. Well, in the comic book, that's his name. Because his face looks like a butt.
Yeah.
That's sort of the level of sophistication in some strange way that this comic book sort of works in. But at the same time, it is a really morbid tale about faith, humanity, and bad things that happen possibly from outer space.
And meanwhile, yeah, it starts off with this very sort of like 1950s sci-fi thing, and then shortly thereafter, a priest in Africa explodes.
Happens again in Russia.
As he's giving a sermon. And then I was really disappointed because we learn on a crawl on the television in a bar that Tom Cruise has exploded. He spontaneously exploded as he's giving a Scientology talk, but we don't get to see Tom Cruise explode.
Would have been pretty genius if they had managed to corral him into this.
I guess there would be some legal issues
Did
involved.
you like it? Are you excited to watch it again? Because it's so much stuff going on.
I warmed to it, and I appreciate that it is building a mystery, and I like its brazenness in not explaining everything right off the bat. It's one of those pilots that kind of lures you in, and like I said, it makes you ask what the hell is going on here. And yeah, for me, it was done with enough imagination that I would come back at least for a second episode to try to fill in some of the blanks.
See, it's weird. I didn't love the comic book that much. I was never a big Vertigo guy. Vertigo was DC's adult line. That's where you had Sandman, which I liked a lot. You had a lot of the Warren Ellis stuff, the Garth Ennis stuff, a lot of really the Hellblazer is part of that as well. John Constantine. You know, I always kind of liked it, but it always felt like, you know, it was just where comic book guys went to do stuff that was too raw, too graphic, too violent, too sexual for comic books. It was always the stuff that was sold behind the counter at the comic book stores. And to see it wrought, you know, live action is really interesting in the same way that I sort of like some of the comic book movies we've talked about over the last few years. But I like the fact that this is more chaotic, more jumbled, and more head-scratching than even the comic book. And it does make me want to watch another episode. I'm just not so sure that I'm hooked all the way through just yet. I have very little tolerance for TV shows that sort of revel in its viscera without
Like devouring a cow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny joke, but it doesn't make me want to keep watching it for some reason. And I don't know why that is. I'm not a big Walking Dead guy. That's another comic book.
Not either.
But that's another comic book TV show. There are certain comic book shows that I feel work better as comic books. You know, there's a ton of Preacher comic books. There's a ton of trade paperbacks. If you want to go read them, they're available. Gives you a better sense of what's going on. I just never absorbed them in the way that I still gravitated to, you know, men and women in spandex for whatever reason.
I remember I read a tweet the other night from a novelist I like a lot, Matt Johnson, who's a big comic book nerd, really good novelist, lives in Houston, and he said something to the extent of watching Preacher as a television show makes me realize how much I liked it as a comic book.
Yeah.
So I guess he wasn't quite feeling the transfer of mediums.
Well, that's how I feel about 99% of what we talk about when we talk about these print to screen adaptations. Whether it's a book, whether it's a novel, a short story, or a comic book. I mean, there's a reason that they began in those particular media. They worked well. The authors found their voices there. These characters translated there. They transcended the page. To use them as storyboards or to try to put them in a more conventional narrative, no matter how wacky or wild or gory it may be, still, you know, is asking for a translation that doesn't necessarily carry over to the original.
And it's absolutely genre entertainment. It's absolutely, it has a lot of viscera, as you said. It's very gory, it's very sacrilegious, it's all of those things. But it also seems to be aspiring, as you referred to something of a more spiritual nature, even right. in its very dark and in some ways immature way. It has some things on its mind
right.
that get to who we are and what we care about. And
it's about redemption.
And I admire that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. It's about redemption. It's about should you do a bad thing that leads to a good thing just because you can do that bad thing.
And Dominic Cooper, this, once again, a British actor who can just come in and nail a very specific American part. This very laconic,
Right.
young West Texas reluctant preacher. The Brits just have us down so well.
A lot of weird people in this, which is one thing I do like about it. You know, the abusive relationship that's not as. It's just a lot of complicated people in this particular, and they all have a particular set of skills.
Some very violent.
Most very violent, all very violent, and all very weird.
Violent stuff. Don't watch it with the kids. Preacher is.
But go see it rather than X-Men Apocalypse.
Did you see that?
Huh?
Did you see it?
I refuse.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I just
either.
refused.
Heard it wasn't very good. You know what's pretty good? Just since we're talking television, just real quick. The Roots reboot, surprisingly decent.
When is that?
It premieres Memorial Day and runs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the History Channel.
I feel like we should have done that.
Surprisingly good. Yeah, but then you would have had to spend like 8 hours watching something.
I ain't got time for
You're
that.
busy writing
I'm
about
busy, man.
Robert
I'm
Jeffers.
busy being the Antichrist.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of Preacher, airs Sunday on AMC.
It does indeed. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.